Hello everyone, you are on the Scary Story channel. Welcome back to another tale that will hopefully send a little shiver down your spine. Tonight's story is about something many of us have experienced. That strange, unnerving feeling you get when you're alone in a house, especially when dealing with a dark, foreboding staircase. It's a feeling that's hard to shake, the sense that you're not quite as alone as you think you are. So, find a comfy spot, maybe pull the blanket up a little higher, and let's dive in. The house was old, a relic from a time when craftsmanship meant more than just slapping up drywall. My parents had bought it for a steal, thrilled by its Victorian charm and the sprawling, albeit overgrown garden. For me, a 17-year-old, it was just a big, dusty box full of creaks and groans. But the one feature that truly captured my attention, and not in a good way, was the grand central staircase. It was made of dark, almost black oak, and it spiraled up from the center of the foyer like a gnarled wooden spine. During the day, with sunlight streaming through the tall windows, it was impressive. But at night, it transformed. The shadows would stretch and deepen, and the ornate carvings on the banisters seemed to twist into grotesque faces, their silent mouths open in a perpetual scream. My bedroom was on the second floor, which meant I had to ascend and descend that staircase every single day. And every single night I hated it. The first strange thing happened about a week after we moved in. It was late, close to midnight. I was heading up to bed, my phone's flashlight cutting a weak circle of light in the overwhelming darkness of the foyer. The house was silent, my parents already asleep. As my foot touched the first step, I heard it. A soft, rhythmic tap, 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 coming from the top of the stairs. I froze, listening. It sounded like a finger, tapping impatiently on the wooden floor of the landing above. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding small and shaky in the vast space. The tapping stopped instantly. I waited, my heart thumping against my ribs. Nothing. Just the old house groaning as it settled. I told myself it was just the pipes, or the wood contracting in the cool night air. Houses like this make noises. It was normal. I forced myself to take another step, then another, moving faster as I climbed, my eyes fixed on the dark void at the top. I practically ran the last few steps, bursting onto the second-floor landing and scrambling into my room, locking the door behind me. I didn't sleep much that night. The tapping became a semi-regular occurrence. Always late at night, always when I was alone on the stairs. I never mentioned it to my parents. How could I? "Hey Mom, Dad. I think a ghost is tapping its fingers on the floor upstairs." They'd think I was just being a dramatic teenager, spooked by the new house. So I kept it to myself. I started avoiding the stairs after dark, making sure I had everything I needed for the night before my parents went to bed. But then, things escalated. One evening I was coming down for a glass of water. It was earlier than usual, maybe around 10 p.m. As I reached the halfway point, a landing where the staircase made a sharp turn, I saw something. A shadow. It was at the bottom of the stairs, standing in the foyer. It was tall and impossibly thin, a stark black silhouette against the dim light filtering in from the street. It was utterly still. It had no features, no face, just a vaguely human shape that was wrong in every conceivable way. I couldn't breathe. My feet felt like they were glued to the steps. I was just staring at it, and I had the most profound, terrifying feeling that it was staring right back at me. We were locked in this silent standoff for what felt like an eternity. My mind was screaming at me to run, to go back up, but my body wouldn't respond. Then, slowly, it raised an arm. A long, spindly limb that stretched out from its side and pointed directly at me. That's what broke the spell. I spun around and flew back up the stairs, not daring to look back. I slammed my bedroom door shut, shoving a chair under the handle, my whole body trembling. I could hear my own ragged breaths filling the room. I stayed like that for hours, huddled on my bed, listening. But there were no footsteps on the stairs, no sound at all, just the oppressive silence of the house. After that night, I was terrified. The house no longer felt like a home. It felt like a cage I was sharing with something ancient and malevolent. I started losing sleep, and my parents noticed my pale face and the dark circles under my eyes. They chalked it up to the stress of moving and starting at a new school. I let them. I began my own research. I spent hours at the local library digging through town archives and old newspapers, looking for anything about my house. For weeks, I found nothing. And then, I hit a nerve. An old article from the 1920s, detailing a tragedy at my address. A man had lived in the house with his 2 young children. One night, in a fit of despair after losing his fortune, he had sent the children to bed, and then he had waited at the bottom of the staircase. The article was vague on the details, but the implication was clear. He had done something terrible to his family, and then himself, right there, in the foyer. The final line of the report chilled me to the bone. It quoted a neighbor who said the man had always been cold and distant, a shadow of a man. Suddenly it all made a horrible kind of sense. The tapping from the top of the stairs, the children perhaps, and the figure at the bottom. Him, waiting. The knowledge didn't make me feel better. It made me feel worse. It made it real. I wasn't just imagining things. There was a genuine darkness in my house, a lingering stain of a past tragedy. I knew I couldn't stay there. I started pleading with my parents to move, making up every excuse I could think of. The commute was too long. I was allergic to the dust. I hated the school. They were patient at first, but soon grew frustrated with my seemingly irrational behavior. The final straw came on a stormy Tuesday night. The power had gone out, plunging the entire house into absolute blackness. My parents were in the living room, fumbling for candles. My phone was dead, so I had no flashlight. I was trapped in my room, listening to the wind howl and the rain lash against the windows. And then I heard it. Not the tapping, something new, a soft, slow scraping sound. It was coming from the hallway right outside my door. Scrape. Pause. Scrap. It was the sound of something being dragged along the wooden floor, and it was getting closer. Then came the whispers, faint at first, like the rustling of leaves but growing clearer. Children's voices. "He's coming," they whispered in unison. "He's waiting at the bottom. You have to be quiet." I was paralyzed with fear. My door handle began to jiggle. Slowly at first, then more violently. Someone or something was trying to get in. I was backed into the corner of my room, my eyes glued to the door, tears streaming down my face. The whispers grew more urgent. "Hurry! He's waiting! He's pointing at you!" And then, I heard my dad's voice from downstairs. "Everything okay up there? The power's out." The jiggling stopped. The whispers ceased. The scraping sound was gone. It was as if nothing had happened. I shakily called back that I was fine, just startled by the storm. That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I packed a bag. The next morning, I told my parents I was staying with a friend from school. I never spent another night in that house. I eventually convinced my parents that I was having severe anxiety and needed a change of scenery. A few months later, they put the house back on the market. They never understood why, but they saw how much I was suffering, and they relented. I don't know who lives in that house now. I don't know if they hear the tapping or if they've seen the tall, thin shadow waiting at the bottom of those dark oak stairs. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about it. I can almost hear the children whispering their warning. It serves as a constant reminder that some places are steeped in sorrow, and some shadows are more than just an absence of light. They're a presence, waiting in the dark. And that's our story for tonight. A little reminder to maybe turn on the hall light before you head up to bed. Thank you so much for listening and spending your time here with us on the Scary Story channel. If you enjoyed this tale, please consider giving it a like and subscribing for more spooky content. Stay safe, sleep well, and we'll see you in the next one.